Welcome to the One Interview by Night podcast, where we talk to the people who make the One World by Night LARP network happen. Tonight I have Brad with me, and could you introduce yourself?
Hi everyone. I'm Brad. I'm your friendly neighborhood archivist. I've been an HST here in the org for an incredibly long time. I'm former Assamite coordinator, subcord for a ton of stuff. Yeah. It's been a long and busy time in this wonderful hobby we all share.
Yeah. So, first things off, you are the archivist. Can you tell us what the archivist does?
So the primary duty of the archivist that everyone's aware of is logging all of our RNU stuff. Basically, any time that you get approved for something that is either coordinator approval vote or even just a notification, it's got to come to the archivist and be put into Vineyard so that at any point in time, you, your STs, coordinator offices can all look up who's got what in relation to their particular office. You know, like the ST can look up every character in their game to see what's been registered. The coordinator can look up everything that is under their particular coordinator office to see who has what. The archivist is the only one that can see basically the whole picture. We also we keep track of the archivist reports. Every 6 months, every chronicle is required by the bylaws to submit a report answering just a handful of questions telling us what's gone on in their game. Just to kind of make sure that everyone is active, playing, informing the org of anything that needs to be more aware of, and also kind of setting a record for their game so that future STs can look back and go, hey, what happened here 6 years ago, 10 years ago? When did this person stop being prince? When did this person step up as archbishop? Whatever the case may be, it creates a searchable and usable record of your game. Some of the lesser known things that we do is we also keep track of disciplinary actions. STs, when they file disciplinary actions, are supposed to put those in themselves. Like if a chronicle bans someone, the ST has to enter that, but then it's the archivist's job to kind of go back and make sure that it got entered correctly and it's logged under the right person. People tend to put things under what they know a player by, which means names get misspelled. Sometimes they use a nickname rather than the person's actual name. The first time I went through all of the entire Vineyard player by player, there were like 6 separate disciplinary actions for someone whose name was just S. I have no idea who that's supposed to be. So the archivist is in charge of making sure that those all got set appropriately to where they were supposed to go. We also take care of custom content logging, which is a really huge job anymore.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There really is. So, I mean, it doesn't sound like a whole lot, but trust me, anything that goes through any of the 25 genre coordinator offices comes to the archivist. That's a lot of email.
It is, because we have a lot of players and there's a lot of RNU. Because I can only speak to what's on my character. I know my character's got a few things.
Yeah. And the one thing that I do like doing that's more interesting to me is the archivist is required by the bylaws once a year to update council on kind of the state of RNU throughout the org. It's never really defined what that means, and having been on council for almost 2 decades, I don't think any archivist has ever actually done it before. At least I don't recall seeing it. So last year I compiled a report because I've pulled a ton of statistics out of it to kind of give a very high level overview, and it's super interesting to be able to see that, and it's one of the neatest parts of the job is being able to take all of this stuff we log and compile it and pull statistics from it and get kind of this mathematical giant numbers view of what our org actually looks like. It's I'm a giant nerd for things like that, so super interesting to me, and I look forward to being able to update council again this year and be like, hey, here's how some things changed.
Yeah, because I can imagine that's very useful, especially for genre coordinators, to sort of have a good overview of like, well, what's in their genre going on.
Most of the time they can look that up themselves. And one of the things that that I'll say about the Archivist makes it different from the other courts is we're the only ones with a really truly global perspective. Like, I'm gonna pick on Chase for a moment because he deserves it. So, like the Assamite Court's office, they know what's going on with Clan Assamite all across the org, but they really only care about what's going on with Clan Assamite. They're not, they might be like somewhat concerned with what Clan Tremere is doing over here, maybe with what the Demon Court is doing, but overall they don't really care all that much. And so the Archivist is the only one that actually like can see everything that's going on, to see what's getting approved over here, to see how prevalent these things are, to see the statistics from by game, by region, even by player, and to be able to look at all that and be like, I have this true picture of the org as a whole. That honestly, sometimes I wish the genre courts were a little more concerned with, because there are problems that exist in the system that you don't see if you're not looking at the whole picture.
Without getting into too much specifics, because I know the Archivist does have a lot of confidentiality to keep. What sort of problems? Like, in the category of problem.
Nothing in the bylaws about being confidential. That's just because we've had archivists that so far have made an effort to be. So it's long been a thing. I mean, even when I started back in the org, it's long been this idea that there's some old boys club, like there's people that just get whatever they want. And I can say to an extent that is true. Like, I've got everything broken down literally by player as to how much RNU each individual player throughout everyone who is entered into Vineyard has, and the difference is really huge. Like, you know what? Let me actually pull up the statistics here. But like the average, if you were to just average it out across all players, and this is one of the things that I reported to council last year, so it's not like it's hidden information. But the average, oh, I don't have it all by average per player right now, but it's something like 2 point percentage. Each individual player, if you were to take the total amount of RNU out there divided by the total amount of players, it's like each player should have 2 RNUs total across all their characters. We've got people that have over 100, and then we've got a ton of people that have just 1, which is where we get this weird average.
Yeah, and then there's some people have 0.
Yeah, there are some people that are in the Vineyard.
My main PC has several, mostly due to her faction, but my Zemitzi has 0.
Yep. Some characters in there because the STs just put them in the Vineyard, or because they're in the character connections database, so they'll show up in Vineyard without having any actual RNU register them. And it's one of the things that I've tried to poke the coordinators on before, like, hey guys, can we take a look at this so that we can spread things around a little bit? These players that don't have a whole lot, maybe let's figure out, do they not have opportunities for it enough, or are they afraid of asking, or are they in games that are just kind of naturally more conservative in these things? Whatever the case may be, I feel it is on the coordinators to try and look into that,
right,
and to make sure that we're spreading things around rather than just throwing more stuff up on the mountains and creating this massive disparity between who's got all the cool stuff and who's just kind of playing and not getting anything out of it,
and I think
not getting any tangible rewards.
And I think the not asking is kind of a thing, because that's
really
something I have trouble with the exception of when my character started, because I knew when I started the character that she was going to have to notify that she had temporis. But other than that, I've asked for very little. It's mostly been other people saying, you need this, and let's go to the court.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's
some people are just not great at asking, and I'm one of those people, and I'm trying to get better at it.
It's true, and I want to make it clear, like, even as I'm talking about these players that have so much, like, I know most of them. I don't think there's anything malicious going on here. I don't think we've got anyone going, ha ha ha, figured out how to game the system. I think it's just they're people who are comfortable with asking, and so they naturally get told yes, just because they ask more. I mean, you might ask for 5 things, you get shot down for 1 or 2 or 3, but you've still asked, and then you've got something out of it. So I think we as an org need to do a better job overall, from coordinators to STs, of spreading things around and maybe occasionally saying no to the people who already have a lot, even if they're meeting the normal requirements, because you've already got a lot. You don't need this. I'm going to give this to someone who doesn't have a lot. I think we need as an org need to get better at that to give more players more incentive, more buy-in in what's going on. That's just my feeling, though. So.
No, I'm totally on board with you with that. Let's see. Okay. Are there any upcoming plans as coordinator that you can talk about?
Oh my God, there's a prop up to give me subchords.
I know there is.
Oh boy. Oh, that's been something that basically as the person who's been doing this job solo for almost a year now. And I want to make it clear, like I'm not, there are two other archivists. They are great people. Known Sam for a long time. I just actually met Josh, I think, at Blood and Ice, and he seems like a super passionate, interesting dude. And it's just life happens, stuff happens, communication. The point is I've been doing this job for a long time, and to me, the idea is that why do we treat the archivist as different than every other coordinator position? Every genre chord, even the head chord can appoint subchords. The web chord can appoint subchords.
I have a whole team. I think
yeah,
I've
team.
got like 9 people, I think.
Exactly. The archivist used to, for the longest time, was just one person. That was all it was. We had one archivist. And then they got critically behind. So we upped it to 2. And even 2 people could not catch up with how far behind they were and how fast the org kept moving. So we upped it to 4. These were emergency measures because the archivist didn't have the time to go through and put the team together. So it was just the head chord could just, hey, you're it. You're an archivist. Go. You're an archivist. Go. Moving on. And then we never as an org went back really and reevaluated that to go, hey, we built this position up to 4 equal archivists and in an emergency. We didn't bother to like go back and go, okay, now that the emergency's over, now that the crisis has passed, is this functional? And it can be. When I was first brought on, there were 4 archivists, but at times we'd like stumble over each other. We'd get into the email and be responding to stuff the other person already taken care of, going through and double logging things because it wasn't quite clear it had already been done. So then we'd have to go back through and delete it and change stuff around. And it created this hassle because there's no clear hierarchy. And also when there's no clear hierarchy, it's impossible for one archivist to hold the others accountable. You basically just got to kick everything up to the head chord and go, waiting for an answer. Whereas again, with a chord subchord model, like every other office out there, the subchord screws up, well, you're fired. Done. Handled that problem. It's over. And if the archivist themselves, if the coordinator is the problem, well, the head chord can still step in and take care of that. They've got a team of subchords who can report them. The one I brought this up to the head coordinator during election, and I brought it up mostly because at the time I can see when a coordinator application is submitted. I'm like, well, I'm the only one who submitted it, so just you're not going to fire me. I'm the guy doing the job. So here's what I want to do. I want to restructure the office like this because I can see that I don't need a full other coordinator to do it with me. I need a person I can go, here, do this aspect. I want, I specifically want someone whose sole job is archivist reports. Take that off my plate. You don't need to do anything else, just that. So that can be something that gets focused on, but is a much smaller aspect than the whole job. And the very reasonable response that I got back from Kevin was, well, given the confidential nature of what the archivist deals with, it feels like something that shouldn't necessarily be trusted with a subchord. The thing is subchords for every other chord office have the ability to look at your RNU. If I work for the Sabat office as a subchord, I can see all the Sabat RNU. And if I work for 4 different coordinator offices, I can already see a ton of people's RNU. So it's that thing that doesn't make a lot of sense in the long run. It's a good thought. I can understand it, but the web chord gets subchords, and he has more access to the website than I do.
Right. And
so that's my argument of give me subchords.
Yeah. And I mean, we have a process for dealing with if a subchord, steps out of line, or if a chord steps out of line.
100%. Other things that I would really love to do, cleaning up Vineyard. Oh my God. Like when I first stepped up and there were 3 other active archivists, I made it my job to just go through, like I said, player by player, all like 3,000 players that are registered in Vineyard, and merge duplicate entries, because there were plenty of people. Like there was one guy who actually plays in a game logo with me. His name, it was Nick Weber, and he was in there 4 times because 4 different STs spelled his name wrong.
Oh no.
No, it was just like, so I had to go in there and like merge all the characters into one profile, check the spelling, And sometimes, and because they'd done it under different spellings of the name, there were multiple characters. He had the same character under different names. And so it's having to go through and transfer all this stuff over and then delete all the duplicate entries to short it down. And that was just with one player. Like there were some people who were in there the 10 times. The hilarious ways that people have tried to spell Nick Hernlim's last name, the NOS coordinator's husband. Like no one can spell their last name apparently. But there are plenty of people who are in there under nicknames, and I'm just like, well, I don't even know who you are. Like, this is clearly a local name that people call you. So I don't know what to merge this with until I later will find a character by the same name and then be like, oh, let me search the email for that. Okay, that's the player's name. Then I can shuffle stuff around, but I still need to go back through and do it again because there are plenty of them that I know I missed or that I wasn't sure who this was so that I could put them together when I have time. There's plenty of old RNU entries from before bylaw wordings got changed that now need to be merged. There's plenty that previous archivists, because an ability was regulated, they make an entry for each level of the ability, but you only do that if it actually specifies that each level of the ability requires a separate approval, which most don't. So I've got to go through and merge all of those and collapse all the entries and go through all the characters that have them and change the entries over. There's plenty of stuff. There's duplicate things. Sometimes when people enter custom content, it for no reason apparently just duplicates it, makes 2 or 3 identical entries. It happens. So there's plenty of vineyard cleanup that is on my list of things to do when I have time. I don't have time right now. And also, because archivist reports are such a contentious issue, I don't think they should be. It's, every 6 months you spend 20 minutes answering like 8 questions. Shouldn't take you all that long. Shouldn't be as much of a hullabaloo as it is. But because of that, I think there needs to be a lot more dedication to making sure that people understand archivist reports, following up with them. I want to raise the standard of them. And I talked about this a year ago when people wanted to rewrite the bylaws on archivist reports. I'm like, hold on, no. We're going to dedicate more time to this. And then it came down to I was the only archivist and couldn't dedicate more time to it. But again, once I can have some subchords, I want to dedicate more time to that. Make sure people understand it. We're going to raise the standard, which means more archivist reports are going to get rejected until people will put complete sentences in them. Like our standards are not that high, but when I'm asking a game, what kind of major plots have you run? All you put in there is 2 words, Sabbat plot. I'm like, well, that doesn't tell me anything. What are you doing? What kind of Sabbat plot? If an ST, if you stop being an ST tomorrow, and another ST comes in to take over your game, how are they going to know what it is that you were doing? And I know everyone thinks that they're going to be an ST forever, or when they step out, they're going to pass on copious notes, but that's not generally how it works. In the last year alone, I have dealt with nearly a dozen games who have had a sudden and unexpected transition in ST status. 3 of them, their HST straight up died in the last year, which is horribly tragic. And people are taking over the game going, I want to carry on their legacy, but I don't know what it was. There's no record of it.
Right. Like
there's
they may have had something, and because they passed away, it just, there's no way to get it to the new
files
staff.
on a computer no one's got now.
Right.
There's plenty of ST staffs that have just rage quit out of nowhere. And again, you've got people stepping in, filling these shoes, coming to the archivist going, hey, what was my game up to? And I'm like, I don't know. They put like half of a sentence in their archivist reports. I can't tell you what they're doing. My main point in all these is you're not writing your archivist reports for you. You're writing them for whatever ST comes after you. Now, that can be kind of a lie because I used to refer back to my old archivist reports going, hey, you know what? I don't remember quite when this person stopped being Archbishop of my game. Let me go look that up because that's something I have to report on. So they're very helpful, especially if you've been running a game for a long time, keeping sort of an order of operations of when things occurred. But they're super helpful for incoming STs in understanding what was going on up until now. And I really wish people would take them a little more seriously and devote just a little more time to them. It's something you do just twice a year. Heck, have a player do it. You know what the questions are. They're in the bylaws. They're easy to understand. Fire them off to a player and be like, hey, you'll max out on XP for a month if you fill this out for me. And then I'm just going to copy paste it into the form. Done. So that's just another thing that I would like to devote more time and attention to upcoming, for the rest of this term. So.
Was there anything else you wanted to add about being an archivist before we move on?
Do you have more questions?
No, I'm kind of leaving us open to what you want to talk about.
That's fair. No, it's the biggest challenge overall to being an archivist is, and I know I kind of sent a little angry email to council about this a while back, regarding some discussions they were having with another administrative court office, is that it's simply this: the org does not stop. Like, there's never a moment where the games take a break. As I said earlier, the archivist gets everything that passes through 25 different genre courts from 173 different member chronicles, all come to us, and there's a never-ending deluge of email. The best example I have of this that I've said before is in December. I as a CM propped that we suspend the bump pass for the couple of weeks around for the weeks around the holidays, and then for the couple of weeks around elections. And one CM made the comment that I was doing this mostly for myself, not mostly, but in part because of myself, because I just wanted a break. And he's like, you can just take a vacation for a couple of weeks if you want. It's not like anyone's waiting on you to approve everything. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm going to try that out. And I just took off like a couple of days before Christmas to a couple of days after New Year's. It took me 3 months to get caught back up after that, just with the sheer amount of emails that came in over the holiday period alone. January is its own random busy season that adds to that, but it took me 3 months to be able to finally clear out my inbox. And I posted on Facebook. I was so excited. I'm like, I don't even remember the last time I saw 0 emails left in your email box. That lasted exactly 5 minutes.
Yeah,
5 minutes after I made that post, boom, a new email. I'm like, oh my God, you gotta be kidding me.
I think sometimes people don't realize the sheer size of the org.
Yeah.
And I mean, we talk about the org has shrunk a little bit over the years, but it's still huge.
It is still huge. And even the other genre courts, like, they have massive teams to handle all this. And they are doing things like running scenes, replying to stuff, more so than the archivist is. But I guarantee you, I just get, by sheer volume, way more email than any of them. And there, I just wish at times that, like, there was a vacation period in the org. Like, hey, you know what? For these 2 weeks a year, like, no one's allowed to send email. But it keeps me busy. And I say it like it's a complaint, and sometimes it is, because I'm just like, come on, I don't want to have, I stepped away for a few days. There's now 50 more emails in my inbox. But at the same rate, it's kind of this glorious example that even with everything that's happened, even with half of the org currently on hiatus, we're still this wonderfully busy, thriving community. There is still so much going on all over the org. It's very interesting to see, and it's interesting to see, what's happening where. With the kind of approvals and stuff that come through gives me a picture of who's running what kind of plots, who's running what kind of activity, how involved players are, how enthusiastic players are about what's going on. It's more so than just the numbers. It is this fantastic view overall of all of the fun people are having with this hobby.
All right, and you gave me a great transition into, well, what do you play?
Oh, good Lord. I'm not as active in Vampire anymore as I used to be. I still have a couple of big PCs that are floating around. I've got Hierophant on the Sabbat side, and I have Richard St. John, the Giovanni Prefect. I should probably talk to PJ about shelving him or something. I barely get to play anymore. Actually, the game that he's based out of, I don't think has had a session since well before COVID. So but actively anymore, I have a Kinfolk character called Zach Matthews. I have a Silver Fang named Leon Kapowski, and I have the prettiest canine, Jason Willows. That's the nickname that PCs gave me when I only had 3 appearance traits on him. So I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to lean into this completely. Like, I am, as the only canine at the time, I am by default both the prettiest and the ugliest, but fuck it. We're going to have fun with this.
So as those are 2 genres I do not play because I only really play vampire. Tell us a little bit about those characters, because
Oh boy. So Zach was my first attempt after playing vampire for so many years. He was my first attempt to make a character whose entire core concept boiled down to just be kind, no matter what else. And I admittedly kind of styled the character a little bit off of Doctor Who, which then made me more annoyed when Peter Capaldi's Doctor Who stole that line from me. Like, no matter what, just be kind. I'm like, fuck you. Was my concept first.
because that's a
But
difficult concept to run in vampire.
yeah, and it's a difficult concept to run in Garou sometimes too. But yeah, is I wanted to play characters that were, I wanted to specifically get away from vampire because at times, even just constantly playing character, all my vampire characters are gigantic dickholes. Like, I'm not gonna mince words there. Like they are self-serving asshats. And after playing that for so many years, I wanted to do something different, something a more cooperative, something that was a character I would want to play with. Like if I was playing something else, like I'd want to play with this person because they're just nice to be around. They're not constantly trying to look for an advantage or tear me down somewhere. And so that's what Zach originally was. And he's been through a lot of very horrible traumas since then. And so now he's just kind of this broken, depressing shell of a character to play. Jason was another spin on that, Mike Kinane. It's very much the idea of I'm taking someone who is a very good person at heart, but he is also the single most deceptive, deceitful character that I play because he hides everything he's feeling. I've told people before, like if I'm describing him reacting to something, even just like smiling and laughing, 50% of the time, that's not what's going through his head. That's just what he's doing because hey, I'm in this situation. I'm trying to blend in and make sure that none of these people around me who have superpowers can kill me or will want to kill me. So he's kind of the twist on that of be a good person, but you have to lie about it all of the time because you're surrounded by folks who are not good people. And then Leon was a character I made way back in like 2006, more as a joke. Like I didn't know anything about Garou, and I was like, I'm just gonna make this Silver Fang. He is a hairless pimp, which I'm surprised the S2 let me get away with the concept. I was like, this thing's gonna die, but you know what? I'm just making it to learn the genre, so I can play it for a few games while I figure out how all this stuff works, and then I'll make my real character, right? So
Famous last
yeah, he's
words.
still around, still a Cleath. And over the time, I've developed like why he is the way he is and explanations for it that are more than just this is a joke character. Like he's actually crazy serious when I boil down to the concept now, but he comes across as just this, yeah, I'm here to have fun and amuse myself because, hey, if everyone's laughing at me, I'm a menace. They're not hitting me, right? Yes, laugh at me. I'll be the court jester. Don't touch me. So they're more characters designed for me to just have fun, rather because I got tired of the constant backstabbing of Vampire.
Which is understandable. It's a kind of why I have trouble with Camarilla sometimes playing, because that tends to be more backstabby than Sabat, which is funny because everyone's like, oh, the Sabat are the bad guys. They're the ones who embrace being monsters. Yeah, but Valdery does a lot to make people cooperative.
That's why we have the Code of Milan.
That too.
Yeah, no, Sabat. It was. I remember way back in the day when it was hard to get people interested in Sabat because all anyone knew about them is they're the antagonist to Camarilla. Why would I want to play the bad guy? And then once you get people like pulled in and making a character, they're like, oh no, this is actually really fun. In fact, I prefer it. Because yeah, you cut out a lot of that backstabbing just for backstabbing's sake. Like there's plenty of in the Camarilla where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna fuck you over because that's just what we do. We're bored. In Sabat, there's more of an overall point. in my opinion. And again, I ran a Sabat game for a billion years, so I'm a little biased.
Yeah, it just comes down to like very different play styles in both genres.
Very much, very much.
And then you get Anarch, which has entirely different play style of its own. That's kind of the great thing about having different sects, is that you can kind of pick your play style.
I always described Anarchs as Sabat members with just a very specific form of amnesia where they forgot what sect they're in.
You aren't wrong. They're baby loyalists.
Yeah, more or less. Oh, well, that's
so
my rants for the moment.
Yeah, I think that's, let's see if I had anything else to ask. I think that was everything.
All right.
Yeah. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Going into this, I didn't really know a whole lot about what the Archivist did, except for, you handle the RNU and you do the Archivist reports, but it was nice to get into sort of the nitty gritty of why you do what you do.
We're here to keep a record of the org. It used to be, way back when the position was first created, it was actually called the RNU coordinator. And the Archivist was what the historian is now. When the Archivist, or the RNU coordinator's only job was to log RNU, of which at the time there was very little because we hadn't really formulated most of the bylaws. Like, I think the entire RNU section was like 2.5 pages long. Now it's dwarfs every other section of the bylaws. So yeah, we've shifted a lot toward expanding the Archivist and making it the historian position rolled out of it eventually into its own thing, because that was something that needed more attention. But yeah, I mean, it's in a way, the historian creates more of like the written record, whereas the Archivist has the data record of everything that is going on in the org. And it's, like I said, it's fascinating to be able to see that, to be able to see how much fun and how much interesting stuff is going on across the org when people fill out their Archivist reports properly. So it's a fascinating job that makes all of the ridiculous number of emails worth it, just to get that overall picture of how cool the org is at any given moment.
Yeah, and I mean that's the whole, one of the big reasons we're doing this podcast is that a lot of people don't necessarily know, especially what the admin coordinators do.
Yeah.
So this is really letting people know what you guys are doing and how important it is to the org. And you mentioned the historian. We're working on lining her up. Fantastic. She hopefully will be the next person we interview. And most likely we'll actually release the episodes yours and then hers, because they will follow up on each other, I think, really well.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic.
So, yeah. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you. This was interesting.
And
have a good evening.
You too. Goodbye. One Interview by Night is hosted by Sheryl Westleigh. Contact and interview prep by Ariel. Editing and music by Christian Keller. If you are interested in playing in One World by Night, please visit our website at OWbN.net. You can contact the marketing team at OWbN-marketing@googlegroups.com. One Interview by Night is presented by One World by Night, produced under the Dark Pack Agreement with Paradox Interactive. Portions of the presented material are the copyrights and trademarks of Paradox Interactive AB and are used with permission. All rights reserved. For more information, please visit worldofdarkness.com. This material is not official World of Darkness material and is intended solely for use by One World by Night.